to jump off. We want to see faces. So if you want to keep your screens open, Cecily, are you all right with having screens open in people's faces?
I love seeing people.
So let us see you. If you have access, if you have that, let us see. This is good practice. A lot of us, we're having interviews right now, and it's virtual interviews. So it's a really good way for us to be able to see what we're looking like on the screens. So use any time we get as a opportunity to practice for employment. So what I want to do is I want to just give a big shout out to Cecily Hastings from LinkedIn. Our team is really excited. I was just giving her a pump up because this is our first 2021 training. And so Cecily, she's going to bring the bells and whistles. She's got it all going on. If you missed on New Year's waking up at midnight with the fireworks and the pans and everything, she's bringing that today. How's that? Is that right?
Apparently, yes. I promised a lot of fireworks and a lot of excitement, but that's also probably dependent on everybody on the line remaining active and engaged. So please feel free to jump in so that we can make the fireworks a little bit brighter.
That is perfect. Well, just a reminder, so we want to see you, so go ahead and pop up your screens. We also want to keep you on mute. If you're not talking, remember to mute yourself so that we're not all hearing your background noise, maybe somebody on a blender or road construction happening outside. Mute until you're going to get up and talk. So Rachel, Jessica, anything else I missed we want to cover? All right, Cecily, we're handing this off to you. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Spencer. I really appreciate it. By way of introduction, my name is Cecily Hastings. I work currently with government agencies on their hiring strategy, but I used to work with corporate customers. So I've had a chance to really see behind the scenes what goes into that hiring process. So feel free to ask any questions for me that you guys have about like how to make yourself more appealing to recruiters or anything along those lines as we go through the conversation today, because I've seen how hundreds of organizations are doing their hiring and how they prioritize things. And it has given me a lot of opportunity to really understand how to best optimize things. But today we'll be talking specifically about LinkedIn and how to use LinkedIn within your job search. I've found my last 3 jobs, not from applying to a job, but actually by using LinkedIn's network to be able to find those employment opportunities. So what I'm going to walk you guys through today are some best practices for your profile. I'm going to show you guys some of the underutilized resources that we have out there. And we're going to talk a little bit about professional networking as well, with 80% of jobs being filled through referrals. Networking and the ability to reach outside of your existing network and build those connections is increasingly important as we move forward. I like these sessions to be as interactive as possible. So when I'm running a session, a rock your profile type of session, I encourage everybody's active engagement. If you have any questions, even if you think it might be a question that other people know, chances are there's 10 people on the line that don't. So feel free to jump in and make this as engaging as possible. We want you guys to get as much as possible out of the session. All right, I am going to go into my presentation now, and you can let me know when you can see my screen. Everybody see it? We're good? Awesome. So for the purposes of today's call, we're going to give you guys a little bit of background on what LinkedIn is, which you might think that you know, but there's probably some new information in there. We're going to talk about why you want to be engaging on LinkedIn, best practices for your LinkedIn profile, what you want to be doing beyond your LinkedIn profile, and then we'll leave some questions for Q&A and then wrap up the session. So again, feel free to jump in, leave the questions in the chat. Feel free to interrupt me as I'm going through this if anything comes up. So let's start with a high level overview of what LinkedIn is. So I like to start with our vision as a company. So when you think about what we're trying to do, we're trying to provide economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce, which basically means how are we building ways for you guys to find your next job and for employers to be able to grow the economy. And that's really at the core of our mission, and one of the reasons why LinkedIn is such a great place for job seekers to be engaging. And then our mission as a company is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. So this is how are we facilitating that information sharing, helping you connect up with the right people that are going to help you advance your career and really moving that ball forward. So when you think about why you want to engage on LinkedIn today, our value proposition to our members is how are we connecting you up to the right opportunity at the right time? And to do that, there's a few areas that we measure and that are core to the way that we're helping map the economy. So when you think about the value that we're providing there, we have 690 million members on our network, about 84% of the California workforce. So when you think about 10 years ago, if you were applying for a job, like even after the evolution of job boards coming out, your monster.com, your Indeed, your career builder, all of those things, that gave you a lot of access to jobs, but it didn't necessarily give you access to the people that are behind those employment opportunities. So what LinkedIn does is it gives you the ability to put a face behind the roles that you're trying to pursue. It gives you a chance to network and learn about what it would be like to be in a role. It gives you a chance to tell your story to other members. So basically get out how you've overcome different obstacles or why you'd be a valuable employee and things like that. All of that can filter through and actually get in front of members. We have 50,000 or 50 million companies that are on LinkedIn. So these are the people that you're wanting to get hired by, but this also provides you opportunities to do research into, is this place going to be a good culture fit for me? Do they value diversity, equity, and inclusion? Are these places that I already know people that are working here where I can leverage my network and get in the door? We have millions of jobs that we can connect you up with. We can also look at how to do skill transitions and figure out how to find your next role and your next job opportunity. We have the skills that are most in demand within your industry, and we're also working on the evolution of those skills over time. So things like our LinkedIn Learning platform that help you with that skills development. That all filters through the platform as well. And then we're also tracking educational background from a job seeker perspective. This is super important, gives you a chance to connect up with your alumni network, to be able to reach out to other folks that are there and understand how people are entering into the job market. And then the final area is we're actually the world's largest online publishing platform. So whether you're looking to get information about how to do virtual interviews or how to write a resume or something like that, or if you're just looking to talk about your experience as a person with a disability, maybe, or as a single mother or whatever that is, getting that perspective out there and that first person perspective. This is a great way to be able to share information within LinkedIn's platform while also bolstering your own personal profile. So any questions there about that, about an overview of LinkedIn and why we're engaging here? Did anything come in on the feed? Nope.
No questions so far.
All right, I will keep moving then. So we're going to start with the foundations of what needs to go into your profile and some of the top things that you should be looking at. So the first thing that you want to think about is, how are we getting a photo up on your LinkedIn page? People are naturally more likely to connect with members, to receive more messages, things along those lines, if they're putting a face behind the name on your profile. So general best practices there are to make sure that it's a profile picture that really zeroes in on your face, that people can see like who you are, something that's personable. It can totally be something that comes off of a iPhone or anything like that. It doesn't have to be like a professional grade photograph, but really the most important thing is that people can see who you are. This is like a first step. Like if you're going to be going into an interview, this is a chance to put a stagnant best face forward at the front end. The next thing that I like to highlight is making sure that your industry is affiliated. All of the information that goes into your profile, whether it's the way that jobs are targeted to you, or we have a number of tools that people use on the back end that are in the recruiting world, that use this type of information to be able to identify who is going to be a good fit for roles. So these are going to be really important for you guys to make sure that you're building out your industries, that you have your skills listed, things like that. But a good first step is making sure that the industry you're working in is there. Third thing that you want to focus on is, how are you developing a compelling summary? So this is going to be a high level 3 to 5 sentence type of thing that I like to call your personal value proposition. So if you haven't taken time to sit down and think about why someone should want to hire you versus somebody else, I would recommend, like, before you do anything on LinkedIn, really understanding what the unique value is that you bring to the table. So everybody has different things that they're going to be bringing into the workplace. Maybe you have an entrepreneurial spirit, or maybe you work really well in teams, or maybe you have a unique type of experience that enables you to better understand your client facing roles, or whatever that is. But really sitting down and thinking through, like, why should someone value you as an employee, and how are you relaying that information out to the broader job market? This is a really important area. This is your chance to really sell yourself as a job seeker. So I would put that in there. You can include pictures of things that are important to you, or stuff like that as well. You can also put your resume on LinkedIn in this section. If you do put your resume out there, make sure you're removing things like personal information, address, things like that. Sometimes people will just upload their resume that they're sending out to companies, and you want to make sure that you're also protecting your personal information while you're putting that information out there.
Cecily, I have a couple comments or questions from the chat.
Yes.
Is there a minimum age to be on LinkedIn?
Yes, I believe it is 16.
16?
Check that. Yeah.
Okay. And then I had two people, I think that you're probably going to address this next, but a couple people have asked about, I have a mixed bag of experiences. How can I add my job experiences and background to LinkedIn to make me a strong professional? So I'm assuming that means that they have varied job history. Are you going to go into that?
Well, we talk about like the positions and the way of ranking that, but I would generally say there's a start date and end date to all your positions, and you can also list multiple positions at one time. So really, when you go into putting that work history in there, it's fine if you have like overlaps, or if there's varied work history. I would be as comprehensive as possible, would be my advice there. Any other questions that came through?
Nope, that was a couple comments, but I think you're going to be going over that.
Okay. So when we're looking at your experience, this is where you're going to put all of that work experience that you're talking about, that we just talked about, and you're going to want to make sure that that's going in the door. So this is not supposed to be like a full-blown resume where you're putting a million bullet points in there. This should be a high-level summary of the work that you've done and what kind of impact that had. So I always like to think of phrasing this in impact statements, like think of the top 3 to 5 things that you really drove impact in within that position, and make sure that you're getting that information out there in each of those roles. It shouldn't be in a bullet point format. It can be a little bit more conversational, but make sure that it is comprehensive so that people can browse through that and understand the work that you've done. You can also put examples of your work, and this could range from like even just linking to the website for the company that you worked for. But if you have other videos or other things that are out there, there is a place to add multimedia. People really love multimedia today. Like, it's why photos go over well. It's why when you're posting into your newsfeed, people love videos, people love images. It's a important part of this process, and anything you can do to make that more interactive and engaging is going to be more appealing to employers. Volunteer experience is something that people don't always think about adding to their LinkedIn profile, but if you do have that, a lot of companies are focused on holistic employees at this point. So what that means is basically they want to know who you're going to be both in the office and outside of that. There's been a huge shift towards a focus in the environment around how are people aligning from a culture perspective? Are they going to be a good culture fit? And so a lot of times that volunteer experience is an added bonus when you're going through an interview process, if they know that you're engaged and active in your community. Skills and endorsements. So this is, you can have an unlimited number of skills listed in your profile. This is one of the most common things that recruiters search on. So when you're talking about the types of skills that you're making available, I would make sure that that's as comprehensive as possible. I'll also show you in job postings, it'll actually list out for you the skills that have been requested by an employer. And I would make sure that you're making that as comprehensive as possible, or as comprehensively aligned with the skills that you actually have. Because a lot of times recruiters will use that to zero in on the types of candidates that they're looking for. And the ones that are using our platform are definitely doing that as a way to pre-screen applicants.
Can I cut in again, Cecily?
Yes.
So you said I could cut in, so I'm going to be cutting it.
I love it. Keep it coming.
So one person asked, can you clarify on what do you mean by comprehensive? For example, maybe simplify the language a little bit.
Sure. So basically, I usually would align this to what is listed on the job posting, but anything that is a major need for your area, you want to be putting on there. So even if you have hundreds of skills listed, that's going to make it more searchable. If you have skills in Microsoft Office and that's something that someone's looking for, but you haven't listed that out in your profile, on the recruiter tool specifically, if you didn't have that physically listed, you would be excluded from that search result, even if you had that. So I would say if there's certifications within your industry or if there's specific things that you're looking for, a lot of the people that are doing that proactive sourcing are looking for niche skill sets. This is especially true, like a lot of times people won't do it for something broad like Microsoft Office. I don't think I've ever had a recruiter run that. But if you have like any sort of certifications, that's an example of something that frequently filters through skills, or any sort of like specialized experience or specific programming languages or things like customer service, stuff like that, are things that are commonly filtered by. Does that answer the
Next,
question?
I think so. I don't see any other clarifications coming up. The next question is, what if I'm employed and I don't want my workplace to know that I'm looking for work?
So we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but generally speaking, when you're building out that skills, it's not going to alert anybody that you have that in there. So that's a great way to let recruiters tap you from a passive perspective. There's also an option where you can say that you're open to hearing about new opportunities, but aren't actively pursuing them. And that will actually block your workplace from seeing that you have listed that open to new opportunities, but it enables recruiters to reach out to you. So that's another thing that I would say is a great example, but I'll show you exactly what that looks like and how that works.
And last question is LinkedIn certifications, how that works. I know we talked about not really talking about the paid aspect, but I don't know if you want to touch on it just a little bit with the certifications.
Yeah, so there's well, you can also add in certifications that aren't related to LinkedIn Learning on there as well. So there's ways that you can list out certifications as a portion of your profile. That's definitely helpful to have on there. I would still add, if you have a certification, I would double that up as a skill, even if you're putting that into the certifications area, just because a lot of people default to this skills use case because it's going to be a broader net than not everybody fills out that certifications area. And we typically have a higher percentage of people that do the skills. So I would double down and have both of those present. But I would definitely make sure that you're also including any certifications you have in that skills area also. Any other questions?
That was it so far.
Awesome. The next thing that we're going to talk about are recommendations. So I usually, you can feature 2 recommendations that are available like without having to click show more. I would try to at least have those 2 built out, and I would think through maybe the ones that you're featuring being something that was like a manager relationship as well as a peer relationship. If you're able to get that, just because that'll give a perspective of what it's like to work with you like as a peer, but also how a manager felt about you. You can go back in time and do that, but this is a great way. It's kind of like a firsthand testimonial that you're getting before you've even applied for a job. So a lot of times what other people say about you is just as important about as what you're saying about yourself. And don't forget about the small things like your location, your educational experience, making sure that any publications that you've done are listed, highlighting accomplishments. All of that information, again, does filter through, and recruiters use that actively to be able to identify job candidates. All right. Any other questions on building out profile before we switch over to, now that the profile is built out, where we're going to take that?
On education, is the when necessary?
It's not, you can leave that off if you want to. I get a lot of questions about like, what if my work history looks too long, or I don't want to experience age discrimination or anything along those lines. That's something that comes up regularly. My 2 cents on that is there's a lot of people that are actually looking for that type of diversity in their workforce. And also like, you don't really want to be working for an employer that is going to discriminate based on age, in my opinion. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to be doing that if that was happening. I know it's not supposed to happen in general, but like generally speaking, you want someone that's going to value the amount of experience and the wealth of experience that you've accumulated. And there are tons of employers out there that are actively looking for that. So I think generally you get further on LinkedIn by being authentic and true to yourself, and putting as much information out there as possible, because you're going to be attracting the right types of employers that are going to be the right fit. And you don't necessarily want to be showing up into like a tech office frat party, if you've worked really hard in your career to get beyond that and to really build that experience and that wealth of knowledge. But that's kind of like, that's Cecily's position, not LinkedIn's position.
Got it. The next question is, if your certification has expired, should you leave it on your LinkedIn profile?
I think you can mention that you had that because it's probably going to be more likely for you to get recertified. Don't hide it in the interview process, but I don't think it hurts to leave it up there.
Okay. In your experience, do recruiters/employers use LinkedIn for entry-level jobs?
Yes.
And
just
what are some things? Oh, sorry, were you expanding?
Yeah, no, I was just, that was a short answer for, it was yes, but well, there's a lot of people that are using us for all of their positions now is what I was going to say.
Perfect. What are some things to avoid on LinkedIn, and is it beneficial to make it public?
So I would say when you're thinking about things to avoid on LinkedIn, generally this comes through content updates or where people can start to get into trouble. I would think about whatever you're posting on LinkedIn. Are you going to be okay before you post something? Are you going to be okay with every future employer of yours knowing that that exists? And so I would steer away from things that are related to politics or things that are even like non-professional stuff that's out there. Like, make sure that whatever you're putting out there are things that are going to contribute to your professional brand, and don't keep it away more so from the personal. You can have like a personal thing put in every once in a while. Like I posted a picture of like with this whole work from home thing, like my new normal has become my dog like sleeping on top of me while I'm trying to work. And so like I got a picture of my dog with the computer, and like that actually got a lot of traction, but it was related to like me doing work and trying to balance with COVID. So that was something that was I think an okay thing to put out there. It wasn't something that was going to make me uncomfortable from a professional perspective, but I might not want like to put out information about my personal views about things or the party that I went to on Friday night or whatever that is. So I would always just think about it in that lens. What was the second part of that question? There was two parts there.
And is it beneficial to make it public?
So we're about to move into this, a perfect segue into the next area. I definitely think that the largest benefit that LinkedIn can provide for you, especially as a job seeker, is the ability to reach outside of your network. You completely control your privacy settings on LinkedIn. So if you want to make it only your connections or only third degree connections, you're welcome to do that. But I think that the broader the reach that you have, the more professional impact that has. When I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to say this stat several times, it's incredibly important, 80% of jobs are filled through referrals. And LinkedIn gives you an opportunity to build those relationships and build those referrals. And the best way to do that is by people seeing that you're engaging and to broaden that reach. So LinkedIn can kind of be a personal marketing platform for you from a job seeker perspective.
And that was the last question, but I just want to really reinforce for all the job seekers out there what Cecily said about, what you put on social media, and are you going to be comfortable with your future employers being able to see that? Maybe you're comfortable now, but think about it in terms of your brand and your, really how that's going to look in the future, because once it's on social media, it's always going to be there.
And that's true across platforms, but especially on LinkedIn. So you might not be thinking about that like for your Instagram or Facebook or whatever people are using these days. But when you think about that, there's a lot of employers that actually do check those platforms, and they do expect to see a holistic vision of their employees. So in the same way that we're going to walk through all of the information that you guys now have about employers, the flip side of that is employers now have more information about you than they've ever had before, whether or not you're actually actively thinking about that when you're engaging on those platforms.
Thanks, Cecily.
No problem. So there's two types of ways of sharing information on LinkedIn. There's sharing updates. So this could be either resharing somebody else's post, sharing something, industry information, anything along those lines. But those are like short form, usually resharing articles, links, a quote that you've put out there, anything along those lines. The second area is our publishing platform, and this is a chance for you to do blogging, and to make sure that you're getting information out there about what's important to you, the topics that matter most, things along those lines. So that gives you a chance to really engage on a deeper level. That also pushes it out to all of your connections. So when you're sharing status updates, you can do that directly from your newsfeed. So that's right when you log in. You can put information out there. This also totally works if you're following like influencers or you're following companies. You can always reshare posts from there as well. When I talk about company updates or status updates that you're putting out there, this is a chance for you to stay top of mind. So let's say you've had like 20 interviews and you've connected with all of the hiring managers and all of the recruiters that you're doing, and maybe you didn't get a job like a month ago, but a new job's opened up. If these people are logging into LinkedIn and seeing that you're posting consistently and that there's information getting out there, they're going to be thinking of you and your skill set, and you're going to be top of mind to people. So when you think about like the importance of building those connections that you have, I would connect with everybody that's involved in your job seeking process. Afterwards, like send them a short thank you note on LinkedIn, ask for a connection request, but that's also going to give you a pipeline of employers that you are connected to. And also chances are if you're connecting with the recruiters, they're also probably connected up with a bunch of other recruiters at other companies. So when they like your status updates, that's actually going to get in front of those other recruiters as well. So it's a great way of building an organic brand and getting your name out there. So sharing first person perspectives, you can do polls in here. There's a lot of different ways that you can put content into LinkedIn, but it's a great way to drive engagement and keep your connections up to date on what's going on in your life. So when you think about sharing content on LinkedIn, some best practices are use your authentic voice. So speak in your own way, like tell your own story in your own way. Post frequently, and that's again with that staying top of mind for folks. Start a new conversation or share a point of view. So this is asking for feedback from other people. Usually that reciprocity will get more traction and more engagement on the platform. Rich media increases engagement. So you can always include pictures, images, videos, things like that will help you get more traction within your post updates. And then create an opportunity for reciprocity. Maybe you're sharing a personal story about your professional experience. And maybe you can ask like, has anybody else experienced this or something like that? So it gives them a chance to tell their story as well. Those are some best practices for sharing content. Any questions about any of that? No content sharing questions? Okay. So switching gears to publishing, this becomes a permanent part of your profile. It gets shared out with your network, and it reaches the largest group of professionals assembled online. So I think that this is a great opportunity to tell your story. A good example of this is I got laid off from my job before LinkedIn. I actually like lost my job there, and it was completely devastating at the time. And it was not something that I'd expected to have happen to me. Like I'm a hard worker. I do a lot of things. But it actually ended up giving me a chance to rebound and re-engage, to find a career and to really do that research to figure out like what type of company that I wanted to be at. So it became an opportunity for me. So I actually wrote a post about like how to bounce back from like a layoff and how to treat that as a job opportunity. And that's an example of something that was really impactful, and it helped build my brand as a professional. It was actually one of the reasons why LinkedIn wanted to hire me, was because I was honest about that experience that I had, and explained the reasons behind like the layoff and all of that stuff. And it actually ended up aligning really well with LinkedIn's values as a company. And the fact that I'd put that out there was something that was appealing to them. So I think that this publishing piece of things can be a really impactful way of telling your personal stories or sharing information or your perspective on something, while also giving advice to people. This becomes a part of your profile. It gets shared out with your network, and it also will make the content searchable. So if there's like a niche area that you're focused on, or if you're talking about your personal experience, like that makes it searchable. So like if you're a veteran and you're writing about veteran work transitions or what it's like for your spouse to transition into a role, that would then be searched when someone comes up and looks for veteran, they might land on that type of content. So it gives you a chance to get in front of people that might not have necessarily be thinking of that. So the way to publish a post is you go to the same area you're going to before, but instead you're going to say write an article on LinkedIn. So you just go into there, it'll bring you into our blogging platform. You can include rich media in there. You can keep it short and sweet. It doesn't have to be a super long type of conversation. If you're getting multiple paragraphs out there, you might want to even divide that into and make it a series of blog posts to make sure that you're getting out in front of people, but it doesn't have to be a huge thing. But some best practices are create a headline that captures attention. This is going to pull people in. It's going to make it more searchable. It's going to make people want to click on it. Include a photo. So people love visuals. I've already mentioned that. You can actually put photos and visuals into your blog posts as well. Be authentic and share your own voice. This is true to me across all of LinkedIn's engagement. You want to make sure that the person that you're putting out there is going to align with what an employer is going to get from you in the workplace. Think about who you're trying to reach with this. Is the goal to reach hiring managers? Is it to reach your peers? Like, what are you wanting people to take away from this blog post that you're doing? And then make sure that, again, to keep it shorter, people have very limited attention spans today. So if you're doing like a 5-page blog post, people probably aren't going to read that. And you probably want to break that down into a series of blog posts rather than one article. And then
I have a couple questions, Cecily.
yes.
So the first one is, how do you find recruiters? So I'm assuming she means as a job seeker, how would you find recruiters on LinkedIn?
I will cover that later. So I'm going to take
Okay. And second one was, I was before COVID looking solely for work at a location, not at home. Is that an issue now that so many jobs have become work from home? So are you seeing a lot of in-person jobs still?
So there are still in-person jobs and there's also a lot of remote jobs. I'll show you guys how to set up a remote job alert later and how to look for remote jobs. So I feel like people are done with the blog posting, which is good because I'm done with it now too. But we'll transition into more how to find a job moving forward.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've run into conflicting opinions about this. So I have a visual impairment, and I've heard, do I include it in interviews or on my profile, or I should wait till after the interviews? I've heard so many different theories on if I should disclose that publicly. I personally am open to it, but
I think that disclosing that information is, especially with the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think that is a good thing to take control of that story. Like usually with any sort of disability that's out there, there's a lot of things that actually make you a more valuable employee as a result of that. Like I think whenever there's like one area where you might have like a visual impairment, but that might mean that's made you really good at listening to other people, right? So think about like, where are the strengths and weaknesses that have come out of that? But
okay.
I think taking control of that story and putting that up front, it's something that actually, like a lot of my employers, it's one of the largest gaps that I see. Because like when you think about like what people are listing on their profile today, like I actually have a lot of employers that are trying to reach out to underrepresented minorities or veterans or people with disabilities. They actually like proactively want to bring people with disabilities into their organization. And it's not something that most people are listing in their profile, which makes it hard to get at, but it's something that's incredibly valued, and it brings that diversity of thought and opinion, and your experiences that you're bringing to the table are going to be different from what's in the workforce today. And that actually makes companies more profitable.
Okay.
So they're looking for people that have come from that different background a lot of the times.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And again, you probably don't want to work somewhere that's not valuing that kind of diversity of thought.
Yeah, I've run into that. It's it's not very pleasant.
Yeah. And it's like any kind of job search. It's not about the employer, you getting hired just by the employer. like you're actually interviewing the employer as well. And I think sometimes job seekers lose sight of that. And going back to that layoff story that I told before, the reason why I was laid off from that company was because it was a bad fit and we didn't align ethically at the end of the day. And I should never have been working at that company if I'd looked into like who they were in a more thorough way. And it was a good life lesson, but like you want to feel comfortable in your workplace. This should be something that, where you are going to be valued because you have unique value that you're bringing to the table.
Mhm.
And anybody that's not going to appreciate that shouldn't be a place that you want to work, in
Perfect.
my opinion.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions on the line? Cool. So, when you talk about gaining knowledge and insights, there's a few ways that you can get information on LinkedIn, and this is getting into some of that career research. So this is also a great transition to that topic. There's a lot of information on LinkedIn that's going to help you better position yourself both through the interview process, but also in screening for, is this a place that's going to be a good culture fit for me? So I would always recommend, this is available on LinkedIn and off LinkedIn, but I would do that research and figure out like, what are the core cultural values? Like, what does this company do? Is this a place that I want to be going? And take all that into effect. If you really want to overachieve, and I actually did do this before working at LinkedIn, I read all of the annual reports for all of the companies that I was interviewing for, which was like a little bit intense. And I guess you probably don't have to do that, but I think the more research that you do and the more that you understand where a company's trying to go, the better you're going to be able to understand that fit. I would also look at the types of company updates that people put out there. So like, what are these people talking about? What do they care about? How are they engaging on these social channels that's going to enable you to do that? You can follow influencers. I think influencers are actually a great source of content for you guys if you're thinking of things to keep top of mind. So if there's particular people that you admire or you're trying to get job advice, like find those people that are like leaders within your industry and follow them, because this is also going to give you great content that you can also reshare and continue to stay top of mind for hiring managers. We have a number of filters that are going to help you look into this when we have that remote work portion of the conversation. I'll show you how to use some of those other filters as well. And then you can also always improve your feed so that you're getting additional content brought in there. So you can, if you see posts that you like, you can let them know that you like that. If you see posts that you don't like, you can also hide posts as well. And that helps make sure that we're getting the right content in front of you to make your experience in the newsfeed as valuable as possible. I'm going to cover 5 underutilized resources, and then I'll walk you guys through a couple of just general job search tips that I have live on the site, and then we'll open it up to any other questions that have fallen out of the scope of what we're doing. So the first thing I'm going to cover are going to be alumni pages, which I don't know if you've seen those, but whether you went to a community college or a 4-year institution, every higher education institution on LinkedIn has a page that has alumni, so you can see who studied things similar to you. It gives you a good network of people to reach out to. I'll show you that. We talked a little bit about open to work, but I'll show you in real time what that looks like and the 2 options that you have there. So if you're an active job seeker, that's going to look a little bit different than if you don't want a current employer to know that you're looking for a job, and I'll show you how to optimize that. We're going to look at how to use company employees, and so this is going to get into both how to identify recruiters as well as how to identify hiring managers, which is sometimes a more valuable conversation to have. And then we'll talk about remote jobs and the best way to find those. And then finally, how to leverage hashtags on LinkedIn to help drive value. So I'm going to get out of this presentation and get over to here. And I'm going to start with that alumni page. So I'm trying to think of what California school I want to go to today. We'll go to
Next date.
Sac State. Okay.
Come on. But that's not the only college.
So on the Sac State page, you can go into this alumni tab here. So this is listed directly on the website, like just under this alumni tab. What you're going to be able to see here is where are people living today. So let's say I only wanted to see where people from Sac State are in the Sacramento area. And then if you scroll over, you can actually get into, you can also search by keyword. But if you want to say, okay, I studied computer science, who are the 2,771 people that also graduated from Sac State that are doing this? So this is a great way as you think about like building your network or finding good places to start out. You can see where people are working today and see if that is a company that's of interest to you. This is a great way to start building your network. So usually if you send a connection request to someone that went to your school and you mention that alumni affiliation, a lot of times you're going to be more likely to set up they're going to accept your connection request more frequently. And then also they'll be more likely to take informational interviews from you, which is pretty much how I found my last like 3 roles, is asking for informational interviews. I actually didn't use alumni networks. I just reached out to people at companies and like used that personal value proposition that I'd created in order to get in the door there. But when you send a connection request to somebody, you can actually customize it. So you can send a little note, and that would be where you'd reference, hey, I saw that you were a Sacramento State alumni. I'm really interested in roles at your company. It would be great to find a time to connect there. And I actually think that this type of networking can be way more impactful than even applying for jobs. It's just a good way of getting yourself front and center behind some key decision makers to be able to learn more about open roles or positions. So that is the alumni piece of things. I'm going to go into open to work next because that's the next thing that I'm thinking of. So in your profile, you can change what you'd like to do and also where you'd like to live. So if you are open to relocating places, you can put that in here as well. And in here, you're able to say, like, these are the job titles I would work for. This is the locations. I only want people who are using Recruiter to be able to see me, or I want everybody to see me and I want to update it with this banner so that people can help me out. And then also like the level of urgency. So I'm actively applying for jobs, or I'm casually browsing and I'm open to people reaching out to me. And that'll actually prioritize where we put you in the recruiter search results. But the main thing is going back to the initial question about like, if we're trying to make sure that my employer is not seeing this, you want to make sure it's only people using LinkedIn Recruiter, because we will exclude your current company from those search results. So they won't know that you put that out there. Any questions about that open to work area?
I don't see any so far. I've got some that I'm going to save for the end.
Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is company connections. So let's see, what's a good, let's say you wanted to work at Google. And I might actually just use, rather than just company connections, I might walk you guys through a couple of the key areas that are helpful for doing research here as well. So I'd mentioned a few things when I talked about doing that company research. The posts you're going to find here, and this is where, like, if you're following the company, these will come through your newsfeed, but it's a great place to research what people are saying and what their priorities are. The jobs tab here, this is going to give you any of the jobs that are at a particular company, so you can see what's open here. We have the life tab here, and this is going to talk about what it's like to work at the company. And then sometimes they'll have default views, like somebody asked about entry-level talent. Here's a page that's actually built out for student recruiting. And it'll give us a chance for you to understand where you're going within that role specifically. So a lot of times we'll see build outs for things like diversity and inclusion. We'll see things for like students for specific job functions. So this is a great way to research and see like what kind of effort has this company put into putting in front of people what it's like to work at their organization, and how are you using that for research purposes. We also have a people tab similar to the alumni tab for each of these companies. And this is when you can get into some of those specifics that you mentioned. Like if I'm trying to find a recruiter at a particular company, you can always go in here and search for a recruiter, and then find all of the recruiters that are there, and be able to reach out and tap them. Or if you wanted to say, I want to find people that are recruiters that went to my school, or I want to find people that are a director level position and worked in media and communications. So you can find hiring managers in here as well. And as you start to click into some of these things, it'll automatically update with the folks that are behind that. So if I go into that media and communications area, this is going to now have all of the profiles down here that are here. And then if you want to go into specific decision makers, these are the 11,000 people that are probably doing hiring at Google. So this is a great tool for being able to connect to people. And also, as you're building those connections, again, as you think about like that 3 to 5 sentences, that's your personal value proposition. This is where I went when I was looking for my job rather than actually going through job postings. I actually went directly to hiring managers and recruiters. So I figured out who was going to be over the teams that I was on. And I would lead with information about the company that I'd gotten off that Life tab, I'd gotten off the annual report, but the reasons why I was interested in it. And so I would start with, I'm incredibly passionate about the work that LinkedIn is doing because I believe in the importance of connecting job seekers up to opportunity. And I want to work in an open and inclusive environment that, and I believe that you guys have done a great job of building that out. And that's a place where I feel like I would fit on a team. And then you go into 2 to 3 sentences of what you bring to the table. So I have a very consultative approach to working with customers, and what gets me out of bed each day is my ability to have an impact on the lives of the people that I work with. So that's something that would align really closely, again, with their values. And then I'd love to learn more about roles at your team or in the broader organization. Would you be open to a 15-minute chat? And I actually got a very high response rate just from following that same formula and going through and customizing a little bit across the board. Lead with them first, 1 or 2 sentences about your value and your personal value proposition, and then asking for 15 minutes of their time. So that can go a long way if you're not getting responses to your job applications or things like that. That personal connection is really going to help out. So that's the people tab, or how you connect with people. And I covered a little bit of extra there.
Really quick, Cecily, this is
yeah.
directly related to what you're talking about. So you had talked about the company report. Was that found on LinkedIn, or was that something you found through the company's website?
The annual report. So I found that on the company's website. So I'm showing you guys the LinkedIn research, but there's career pages that are out there on company pages. I check Glassdoor reviews. I check everything. So I run Google searches. I set up Google alerts when I'm job seeking. I think that there's a lot of research that you can do to make sure that you're landing in the right place.
Great, thanks.
And annual reports are like normally for stockholders. It's usually in the About Us section of a website. You can usually find those there. Any other questions related to company research? Cool. I'm going to walk us through some remote jobs and how to do job seeking. Loving seeing the connection requests coming through, guys. I'm guessing that's from folks on the line. Feel free to connect with me for the folks that haven't yet. So when you're searching for a job search, so I'm just going to say that I'm looking for customer success here. Let's say I'm trying to do that. And I want to look, I'm going to put California in here just for now. So when you run a job search, a lot of times people don't know how to use the stuff at the top of the screen, but we actually have remote positions. So you can actually zero in if you wanted to do United States as a job criteria and then select remote. You can also zero in, like, I'm looking for entry level. I'm open to only full-time opportunities, or am I open to contract or part-time or temporary opportunities as well? Things along those lines. The other thing here is when you go into this LinkedIn features area, you can also see like what's going to be the fastest application process. So easy apply means that you don't have to fill out a resume or an application. What are the jobs that have the lowest number of applicants right now? Are there people where I know people already, so I'm able to better do that research? Fair Chance Employer is for justice impacted individuals, and these are the employers that have said that they're open to hiring people with a criminal background. If you click into all filters, you're going to get additional information that's in here, additional location, salary level, things like that, specific benefits you're looking for. So you can really narrow that down. And then once you have the search results, or you might want to set up a few of these, you can actually turn job alerts on so that those jobs are just pushed out to you. Any questions on any of that? Cool. So the final thing that I'm going to cover is hashtags is an area that we've seen a lot of trending. So this can help you find content, but it's also a great way. Most companies are actually creating, sorry, I can't speak anymore, creating their own employer brand hashtags. So you can search by specific hashtags on LinkedIn if you're identifying this. A lot of people will list that on their career page. But this is a good example of how you can actually use this to learn about like what employees are saying about working at an organization. So this is one that CalSTRS Life, sorry. You can see what actual employees are saying about working at CalSTRS as an example here. And then you can see all of the posts that are associated with this. So you can actually filter through, and if you're seeing like either a culture hashtag or if you want to see other content, it's a great way to filter through content. And then specifically, if you are looking to follow a hashtag, if you click into this post and then go into, if I click on CalSTRS Life here, it'll enable me to start following this hashtag. So you can actually get more information sent out if there's other employees that are using this, if you're trying to get other information. It's a pretty cool way of doing some of that research and getting that filtered through your newsfeed. So that's everything that I've got. I'm open for any questions that we have in these last 6 minutes.
That was so great, Cecily. I was furiously writing notes, and that's why I didn't ask the questions when you last asked. I was like, oh, I missed it. So I do have a few. Let's see. What if your college is not where you live or close to it? Is it beneficial to search a different local university?
I would do it for the college that you attended or use the companies. So I wouldn't do your local colleges because you don't have a personal connection there. I would then focus on the company that you want to work for.
And then there was a question earlier that I'm not sure if you'll really be able to answer this, but they said, I've encountered a lot of job listings like on Craigslist or other sites that don't specify a company's name. In that case, how would you investigate the company?
Okay. So we actually do have a lot of that through like third-party recruiting agencies and things like that that are on here. If you're doing that kind of job application, then there isn't really a way to investigate it until you know more about the organization. This would probably only be applicable for people that are actually listing the employer that they're working for. What I would say is if you don't have the ability to see that up front based on the job posting that's out there, I would do that research once you find out what the company is. A lot of times that means that there's a recruiting agency that's running that. But I would also come up with like, I think a lot of times people begin their job search on the jobs portion of things. And I've actually had the most success thinking about like, these are the companies I want to work for and then working backwards from there.
That's great advice. Next question is, you had talked about remote positions. In your opinion, or what you've seen from LinkedIn, are the multitude of remote positions mainly because of COVID-19, or were you guys seeing a lot of remote positions before?
We were seeing remote positions before for sure. I think that this has accelerated the process, and I do think that this is a permanent shift in the work environment. Like there will be some people that will go back to the office, but office space is expensive for companies. A lot of the companies that are providing benefits and a lot of like the tech companies, which are the ones that are going remote, where we're seeing like the majority of those folks doing that, they were actually putting a lot of money into employee benefits and things like that. And that's actually reducing their costs. And they can also, a lot of times they'll pay employees less in like lower cost of living areas. So it's actually a major cost savings for them to be able to transition to a remote workforce. So I think people are starting to realize some of those benefits, and with the advancements in technology and the way that you can do things today, I do think we see a permanent uptick in the number of remote positions available. And also I would say if you're being hired into a remote role, I wouldn't be concerned about job security because that's up front and center in that application process.
And are all of these services free that you talked about today, or are they paid?
Everything that I showed you guys today was free.
And this is actually a really good question. And one of the first things I learned about LinkedIn that was helpful. So what is a good way to practice with this site to become familiar with the tools without posting live yet? get the profile ready, build over time, then go live once ready?
I would start by building out your profile and then move into the content side of things. So I think that's a great way to begin. There's also, I can send over, I think that they're still unlocked, but we have some free LinkedIn learning courses for job seekers that can give you some additional training that's available. So I can send that out so that you guys can distribute that to the group, but I guess that would probably be where I'd start. And then the other thing I would say is just like to jump in. I know it can feel intimidating at first, but I think the best way to learn is to start practicing and assuming you're not putting something grossly inappropriate out there, like a very, very strong political belief or something like that being your first post. If you're trying to do something related to employment, even if you're not 100% on your first post where you want to be, it's better to have something out there than nothing.
And Spencer, we have a couple more questions, but I know we're right at the hour. Are we okay to go a little bit over?
So yeah, just the point, if folks need to leave, we know we took this hour. If you need to leave, we appreciate you being here. If there were questions that you had that we haven't had a chance to answer, which I think we've answered everything, reach out to us. Whoever sent you the link to come into here, reach back out to that person and we'll make sure that you get any follow-up information, recording, other notes or other things like that. So yeah, if you want to continue going, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, and we will be, this is recorded, so we will be posting this. We'll send you out a link. Everyone who's registered through Eventbrite will get a link to view the recording again. So if you miss something, or if you have to leave now, don't feel like you're never going to be able to see it again. So the next question for you, Cecily, is I work as a workforce services professional. Is there a way to do job search and research for my clients without looking like I am looking for a job myself?
Yes, and I work with a number of workforce agencies. There's a number of different ways that you can do that on LinkedIn. So I would encourage, if there's people that are career counselors and things like that, I'm happy to connect with you offline and learn a little bit more about your job center or region that you're working in. And there's a number of ways that we've worked with workforce professionals around some of those things. We actually have a webinar next Wednesday with Oregon Employment Department, and they're talking about some of the remote job search strategies and things like that. So that might also be of interest for the career counselors on the line.
And then the last question is really more of a maybe a question for one of the agencies that they're working with, whether it's DOR, Golden Sierra, SETA, or one of the colleges. I spend too much time at home now. How do I seriously weigh which is more important, getting a remote position, finding one out of home? Probably not answerable, but I thought I'd ask. What I would say to you is to reach out to, again, just like Spencer said, whoever sent you this link, whatever community organization you're working with. And if you're not working with one, then reach out to myself, to Spencer, Rachel, anyone who's on this planning committee, and we can get you in touch with someone who could hopefully help you to figure that out. And all of the other comments are, you're awesome, Cecily. Thank you so much. So much great information. And then again, Maria, I mentioned I'm going to be sending out a link in the emails that will provide a recording for this whole session. I think that's about it. I'll turn it over to you, Cecily and Spencer.
Spencer.
Cecily,
Bring it home.
I don't know if I could, how am I going to match up to what you just did there? I told you guys, right? Bells, whistles. I mean, you're going to leave here with your mind just full of LinkedIn. This is exciting because, like I said, I say LinkedIn so much every day, every week, every month. I mean, there's a data tally somewhere. Somebody's making money on how many times I say LinkedIn. But this is incredible. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you just being so transparent and available for us. I know you're doing some incredible things within the government, but again, I just appreciate you coming and being personal with us. I mean, having time, taking time to sit down and talk with, with our job seekers, with our employment service providers. So I just want to give a big thank you for that. And I just appreciate everybody coming on. If you registered for this event or for our, I'm actually going to post, unless you're going to put a post up for what our next group is, I was going to throw something in the chat. So if you've registered, you probably are on point. You're probably ready for our next one, or you have the access to register. If not, go ahead and check out the link. And if I do it wrong, Jessica and Rachel are going to fix it. So this is called Roadmap to Career Success. And so the whole idea here is, and if you haven't read this, your resource as a job seeker with a disability to achieve your career goals. Topics covered each fourth Thursday. So come back every fourth Thursday, hang with us. If you've enjoyed this, share this link out. Get the word out. It's a partnership. We don't want everybody to be working in their own silos and saying, hey, I'm a job developer, I'm not sharing. We want people to start partnering and working more together. And look at this, LinkedIn is here. And we've got some incredible folks coming the rest of this year. So hang with us, partner with your AJCCs, partner with your colleges, partner with your VR services, and other programs. The libraries have programs. There's a lot out there. I know a lot of us, we're still in a lot of remote positions, and a lot of AJCCs and some of these other programs aren't quite open yet, but you're still able to access some of those folks. So hang together with us. If there's questions still coming in, I love that Jessica repeated the idea, reach out to the person that invited you and talk with them. And if they can't answer it, they'll reach back out to us. So again, I thank you for being here, Cicely. I'm always excited. I think of our first time that we met. We did a phone call. You blew my mind. So I just appreciate you continually being such a great partner and just doing all the things that you're doing. So thank you, everyone. Rachel, Jessica, anyone else on the team, if they're in here, do you have anything else to say?
I just want to say thank you guys all for attending, and I thought this was really exciting. I learned a lot. I love it when I can be on a workshop where I'm learning things too. So have a great rest of your week.